The Rebel Capitalist Show.
How on earth do you find good property management?
Good property management?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a tough one. That's a little bit of kissing a lot of frogs and finding that needle in the haystack. I've always said that the best and most important person on your team and the least appreciated is the property manager.
Yeah.
They work on small margins. They have to interface with the tenant, but this is where the rubber meets the road. So I got a couple of practical ideas. The first is referral. When you've got someone who's got a third-party manager doing a good job and you get into real estate investing, you start to meet other investors, so you network for that information. And the second is there are some professional associations like the National Association of Residential Property Managers, or there's also the national housing consortiums, and often and local apartment associations even, and often they will have membership that's based on people that perform. The folks that are the fringe characters generally don't belong to those kinds of professional organizations, and that can be a great way to go. Find someone who's a member of one of those organizations, get a referral, and then be prepared. We talked about this with Ken McElroy a couple of weeks ago, the Rich Dad advisor for real estate. You know, he got a situation where someone that was referred to him didn't turn out to be that hot. So you have to trust but verify, as Reagan would say. But a good property manager, worth their weight in gold.
Yeah, and I'll just add this real quick, George, is when you find somebody that either is pretty good or has potential, you can help them be successful. One of our favorite things is when we talk to a property manager, that's our entree into getting to the street level rather than going through a broker. I mean, the idea you approach a property manager and you ask the property manager, Mr. Property Manager, you know this neighborhood, these neighborhoods better than anybody. You know where the lines are, you know the caliber of the tenant. You make money off the cash flow on the property the same way I want to make money on the cash flow on the property. What could I put in your portfolio that would make you successful? And then when they tell you, go buy it, because now, you know, they've got a vested interest. And especially if you're going to be a serious investor, either bringing, you know, more of your own deals or representing a group of investors as we do with our audience, or you're a syndicator and you're going to buy a portfolio, you actually can help make your property manager better. And by giving them things that they can be successful with rather than handing them problems. Too many people get it backwards. They, you know, buy the property based on the numbers that they saw on the internet or the listing deal, and they do their little math. They buy the property, then they go or they get in a contract, then they go figure out the financing, which is getting it backwards, and then they hand it over to a property manager whose first question is, why in the hell did you buy that? But I'll try. And then you discover the market. You do your market due diligence by suffering pain. They do it completely backwards. Yeah, right. And then they find out, I don't even like this demographic. I don't like this neighborhood. I don't like coming here to check with my property. I don't like dealing with these people. And then they develop their personal investment philosophy, and it all happens backwards. If you start at the front end and develop your philosophy first, pick markets, which are demographics, niches, and geographies that fit your philosophy, and then you build a team, and then you let your team help you build a portfolio and manage it, you'll be so much better off. But you can actually help people be successful. Most property managers aren't crooks. They sometimes struggle because they take on problems. But you know, if you actually feed that guy great deals that he can manage, or she can manage well, then they can start to jettison some of their problem properties and put more attention on taking care of you, and you become their best customer. So becoming the best customer is also part of having a great property manager.
There's another property management shortcut, which is this. In the world of property managers, there's the A, fabulous, professional, third party, well-revered. There's the B, and you know, they're doing okay, and then there's the people you want to avoid. It's hard to get in relationship with the A players because they only deal with bigger properties, with more prominent developers and so forth. So you can come right alongside that by passively investing in a private placement or in a bigger deal where third-party, competent, proven management is there. You might not be able to hire them for your 6 single-family houses, but you could put that same capital into a passive syndication, and all of a sudden you're aligned with the A team.
Boy, those are great tips. Great tips. A lot of those I hadn't even thought of. So, okay, last question here, guys. And I know this is very, very broad, but a lot of my viewers and myself, I'm interested in this. What are your thoughts on international real estate? I know you guys do a lot in Belize. Everyone knows I've got a ton of investments in South America. I'm thinking of buying stuff in Eastern Europe, potentially in the Middle East. So in your experience, what are pros and cons, just a 30,000 foot overview?
All right. So the full disclosure is we're fans. We like international diversification, but the big picture is this. As soon as I invest in a different neighborhood, I've got to learn a little more. If I go to another state, I really have to learn more. When I cross a country border, everything changes. The rule of law changes. The basis of law. There's three primary bases of law, and they're very different. Property rights are different. Tenant landlord law. The whole idea of equity doesn't even exist in terms of doctrine of fairness. So you got to start in a market learning, being a student, not being in a hurry. And then I think you got to do the compared to what, because every market has different opportunity. So I've been involved in 8 different countries in terms of purchasing real estate, and each one's different. Each one's unique. There's probably another 15 or 16 that I looked at and decided for very distinct reasons while I wasn't going to invest there. So it's easy to get turned off or scared by it. But the big picture on it is if diversification makes sense, we'll have a group of people and we'll say, okay, who thinks it's risky to invest outside of the US? And there will be hands that go up. And then my follow-up question is, who thinks it's risky to have all of their economics tied to one nation's currency and economy, right? And a whole different set of hands go. So you have to ask that question of yourself. Is it risky to only be in dollars and only be in US property? Is that more risky than the risk of learning another marketplace and exposing yourself, your kids, your family to the culture and the ideas and all that? You travel a lot, George, so you can appreciate the differences between places and people, and so you can embrace some of that. One of the things we like about investment in other places is what we call lifestyle investing, a place that you'd want to go visit and you'd want to spend time. There's certain places I just don't want to go. So no matter how good the investment opportunity might be, we're probably not a player for that. But in other places, it's a big world out there.
I always look at the inefficiencies of the market that we talked about before, comparing real estate to like gold. And when you go overseas, a lot of times, especially in South America, you get some huge inefficiencies in the market, which can either hurt you, but if you're an expert, you know what you're doing, you can really take advantage of that and make a lot of money on the buy side. And then going back to what you're saying is it safe to be all in the dollar? I would also say, how safe is it to be in a real estate market that's 100% dependent upon debt? Where
That's right.
if you go overseas, maybe you could go into a real estate market like Colombia as an example, where, a fraction of the people that own their properties have a mortgage. I would say maybe it's under 10%. And so, how quote unquote risky is that market when, although yes, everyone knows it from Pablo Escobar, but everyone owns their property outright. They don't have a rent payment, they don't have a mortgage payment. So what's the chance of the housing market there going down by 50% in nominal terms? Probably very low. Russell, anything on that?
Well, obviously agree with Robert. I think it really grows out of your personal investment philosophy. If you're picking a place purely because it makes financial sense for all the various reasons and you don't want to touch it, then I'm going to invest through somebody who is going to be managing that. I'm not going to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's more of a lifestyle type investment and I'm going to be involved, then it's going to be a place I want to visit, that I feel comfortable. But I think it starts with building a team, and the team will guide you through, all the nuances. The one thing I would say, maybe looking at it from whatever perspective, but since, maybe your audience is mostly American, when timing the buy, there's going to be times when your currency is strong relative to the currency you're buying in. And you can actually pick up a little bit if you understand how to follow the currency markets and buy at the right time. The other thing is you can you acquire debt on domestic properties where the debt is available and transfer the equity offshore and purchase a property free and clear. Now you've effectively taken your domestic equity, which is threatened by the bubble and living in the highly litigious society that we're in and is subject to scrutiny because it's all publicly registered, and you throw a lien on the property and you move the equity to some place where if you purchase it in your own name, you don't even have to report it to the IRS and you're not breaking any laws. Make sure, depending on when you hear this and where you are, that you check with your tax advisors. But there's tax considerations, there's asset protection considerations, there's privacy considerations on top of the return on capital considerations and the lifestyle considerations. So when you put all that in a blender, it makes a pretty good smoothie, and I think makes the argument that people that are open-minded really ought to take a look at it. If it would not have been for offshore, 2008 would have been much more brutal. The judgments, debt defaults, creditors, they have to go litigate that in the foreign country to go after those assets. So again, there's reasons why people who have substance use international structures.
Right.
And it's no different than wanting to have an alarm system on your house or locking your doors at night. You just want to take care of what you've worked hard to accumulate. And an international structure with real estate at the core can help do that. There's no reason, not a lot of reasons not to do it compared to how many reasons there are to do it, in my opinion.